Hi, it's Jen from Shabby Fabrics. This beautiful quilt behind me is from a new collection called Elizabeth, and this is a quilt designed right by Robert Kaufman called Rosy Stars. Now, the designer of this collection is Debbie Beaves. She's a phenomenal designer, and we fell in love with this. And so you can see it's absolutely striking, and you can just imagine it in maybe a kind of a sitting room or something that's got beautiful light that just showcases the beautiful flowers within this collection. So by permission from Robert Kaufman, we're able to bring you this free download. You can grab that. And by the way, there are kits. If you love what you're seeing behind me, grab that. Of course, these fabrics are for a very limited time. Be sure to grab the kit, and there's an optional backing you can grab. Or you can download that and maybe pick a collection that is, maybe in your stash or something else you're seeing on the website. So we'll be going through how to make the two blocks that really just make up this whole quilt. So it looks complicated, but I will unpack that for you today, and that even a beginner can be successful with making this quilt. So again, if you're going to go ahead and download that pattern, that'll be in the free download. So go to the bottom of our homepage. If you're at our website, click on free download. You're looking for Rosy Stars. Now, if you're buying the kit, no need to do that. We'll be including those instructions inside. So right away, we're just looking at two blocks, right? So let's just break that down and then we'll dive in. We have squares, both in the corner and in the center of the block. And then we'll be learning about half square triangles and flying geese blocks, and that's it, or sewing those together, adding some borders and binding, and you have a beautiful quilt to display. So let's dive right into the instructions, and I'll put this off to the side. Any notions that I'll be using, I'll speak to those at that time. If you watched any of our videos before, you know I always start off a project with wonderful brand new thread. This is a 50 weight confetti cotton, a new blade in my rotary cutter, and a new needle in my sewing machine. There was a time where I was like, I just kind of tolerated dull blades or dull sewing needles. I don't do that anymore, and I'm finding I have much better results when I start off with good ingredients. It's kind of like cooking, right? Better results when you start off with good ingredients. So as we dive into the Rosy Star pattern, of course, it's going to have all of the sizes that you'll be needing to cut out of your fabric. And hey, if you're going to be downloading the pattern and using your own fabric collection, one thing that you could do, let's say you're using a red floral or something else for your fabric A, is sometimes cutting out just a little piece of that fabric and placing that over top of what you're now seeing as a purple is just an option for you. That way, when you're referencing your pattern, you can make that correlation. But, of course, we are using the beautiful Elizabeth fabric, so we will be using the actual fabrics you're seeing in the pattern. Once you have everything cut out, and we have things labeled here, right away we're going to start off with how to make our half square triangles. Different techniques available to you. We're going to start off with our two fabrics that we have them labeled here. For our we're going to make 4 half square triangles, but we'll be making 2 at a time. So here's the rule of thumb with half square triangles if you don't know the rule of thumb. The rule of thumb is if you want to have your half square triangles finish at 3, you would finish 3 inches, you would add 7/8 to that, 3 7/8. In the pattern, we went up just a little bit more to a 4-inch. A, it's easier to find on your ruler, and B, you will then have something to square up, which is really nice because if you do cut your squares to 3 7/8, which is exactly what you would need and not anymore, you'll have nothing to square up. And I find that's nice when I can square up. So if you know that half square triangle rule, you'll know that it's 3 7/8, but we went up to 4 to again have something to square up. So you'll grab one of each of the 2 fabrics that'll be making up the half square triangle, the white with the purple dot and the purple plaid. I like to put the lightest fabric on top, and basically you've got a choice. You can grab a straight edge and temporary marking pen like a friction pen and draw the line corner to corner. And I'll do the same with the other two squares because you might as well sew them all at the same time. And sew a 1/4 inch on either side of that. That's your first option. The other option, which is the one I went ahead and did ahead of time, is Creative Grid has two rulers. I shouldn't say rulers, they're really marking tools. And they're specifically meant for the purpose of, instead of drawing the line and sewing a 1/4 inch on either side, and now it's up to you to make sure you're sewing a 1/4 inch accurately, what this does is corner to corner, I line up, I draw on either side of that line, and now I sew on the drawn line. So notice how here there's no line drawn corner to corner, but rather we've drawn on the other side of that, which is nice. Pick your favorite method. I went ahead and did this and just sewed. Now I would take my ruler, and let me move those out of the way, and just cut those diagonal corner to corner. Let me move some of this out of the way, and you'll just press to the dark. You know, when you have a light and a dark, just make the habit to be pressing toward the dark, okay? So I press to the dark, just like this. Now you'll see that I'm going to need to go ahead and square this up to 3.5 inches, and this is going to be a little bit bigger. Let's go ahead and measure that, in fact. So that's going to be just a little bit more, and I like that. I like knowing that I can place my ruler on here, and I've got my nice diagonal line, and you've got one on both sides, so you can pick whichever one you like. So right there's my 3.5. You see how I can easily see that? So what's nice about using this side of the ruler, where I have the black markings on a Creative Grid ruler, are always 1/2 inch increments, and the white dots are solid, whole numbers, 5, 6, 7. Why I like using this diagonal on this side of the ruler is I want to be able to trim off something on every single side, and I'm going to use my spinning mat. I really like to use a spinning mat whenever I'm going to square up something on all 4 sides, because now I don't have to pick up the project. I don't have to pick up this unit. So I'll show you I'll demonstrate what I'm talking about. I'm going to be right along this seam with my line. You can see that. And I am inside of that 3.25. So I know that I can trim here, turn without picking up the block, turn. Now I'm going to turn this again, and we know these two sides are squared up. So I'm just going to grab that, and now that 3.5 here and that 3.5 here is going to brace this side, and I have my line. I like alignment. Those of you who've watched my video know I'm a pilot. I like alignment, right? I want to be all lined up perfect, and I check that alignment twice, and then I'm going to make that cut, and I'm going to make this cut, and that's the beauty of oversizing your squares to be 4 inches instead of 3 7/8, because you can see if you're now piecing this into your quilt, the precision is undeniable, right? It's comforting that I know now when I bring this into my block, it's going to come out really beautiful, and my blocks, when they're sewn together, are just going to come out, and the points are going to be exactly what I'm hoping for. So you're just going to repeat that, and as you saw, once you place those 2 squares right side together and sew on either side or on the line as I demonstrated, you get 2 half square triangles. So you'll repeat that for a total of 4, which we've done ahead of time. So we've got those 4, and they're all squared up and ready to go. So we're halfway there, right? We already said we're cutting out squares of 2 different sizes, one for the center of the 2 blocks, those are the same size, and then these corners out here. Those measurements are in your pattern or in your download. Now let's learn about a really cool technique of how to make something that's basically called fast flying geese, where you get to make 4 at a time. So I love that when I get to be able to do multiples of something, and it just makes the project go faster. So this is where we'll go ahead and we will move to this one. Let's go ahead and focus on this block, but it's the same technique. So I want you to see that, right? This is the same exact technique for this as in this. It's just here, this fabric is the main part of the rectangle, and here it's kind of the points, but it's the same technique. So it doesn't really matter which one I demonstrate on, but the video preparation I've done ahead is for this one. So we'll grab this fabric right here, and we're showing you how to do this inside the pattern, where we're just saying, go ahead, you've got this here, and we'll for now just use 2 out of our 4 squares, and just like we're showing, you're lining them up in the corners and lining them up in the corners. Now again, you have the option, you could use now the larger of the Creative Grid marking tool and go corner to corner, marking on either side, or the way the pattern was written, they just used a straight edge, just like so, and our friction pen. You're going to pin everything down and you're going to sew on either side of that. So doesn't matter whether you do this technique or do this technique. You're going to end up with the same result. It's just a little less work sometimes using this tool, but I want to make sure I explain that option to you and you can choose what's best for you. Now we went ahead, just to save us some time, and we went ahead and sewed that. So let me put that out of the way for the moment. So we did that, just like they're showing here, and cut it apart. So just to speed that up, move that out of the way here, and we're going to press away for both of those. So let's heat up that, preheat that seam, and just press to the outside. For both. Okay. Isn't this cool to be able to make 4 flying geese units all at the same time? Press that to the out. Okay, so as we move along our pattern here, see how we now bring in a 3rd square, just like that. So we would bring in a 3rd square, and I went ahead and pre-marked mine, and I used my Creative Grid marking tool. So let me put it in this exact orientation so it's not confusing to you at all. So that's going to be in that corner, just like that, okay? So in fact, we can go sew that. I'm just going to pin that, and we're going to sew directly on the line. Don't be outside of the line. Just like we found before, it's kind of comforting to be able to square something up. So you don't want to be outside of that line. I would say on that line, if not just a breath on the inside, because that's going to give you that ability to potentially square up. You don't want to be short of that. All right, let's go sew that. Okay, so now what are we going to do with this? Well, we definitely need to cut that apart on that diagonal. Put that aside for just a moment and press to the outside again. Now this unit will be trimmed up to 3.5 by 6.5. And those little dog ears there we will trim away. And then you would of course press this one to the outside, just like that. And with your remaining with your remaining square, you're going to repeat that. So you can see these 4, this is going to yield your 4 half square triangles. Isn't that such a cool thing? I get the biggest thrill sometimes out of the simplest thing, that someone came up with this really cool technique, and I get to share that with you, which I always love that. So there's my nice 3.5. Boy, it's such an accurate technique. I'll be honest with you. I've really struggled sometimes with making flying geese blocks, because the way I learned it was the rectangle, and I had a square, and I put the square on, and I draw the line, sew on the line, and I trim a lot of fabric away and feel bad about that every time and flip to the outside and do the same thing, and they haven't always come out well. Every time that I've used this technique, I am so happy with the results. They are just really very, very accurate. So let's see here, and look at this. Look at this, is so exciting. Again, I get excited. Do you see this delta, this kind of point right here? I hope the overhead camera can see this. So as I'm lining up with this, that's so exciting that those lines create this actual, it's like echoing the shape of my flying geese. That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. That's the intelligence behind these creative grid rulers, which is just phenomenal. The technology and this grip is incredible. I don't have to worry about this sliding away on me when I'm getting ready to cut something and cut something very precise. I've definitely had that happen where, especially as I get further away from the cut, the ruler gives and I make a miscut, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and I don't have extra fabric left over. So we've got our 6.5 by 3.5. So you will get 4 of the flying geese blocks from that process, which is just incredible. So now that we have that, to make this block, you know, here you are with your fabric you've cut so very carefully. We've made our flying geese blocks, and we made 4 at a time, which was super fun. And now you're just coming in with your corners. You can see how this can absolutely be a beginner project. So if you are fairly new to quilting, maybe you dragged out that sewing machine to make face masks, and you're now like, okay, what else can I make with this sewing machine? This is definitely something you can make, and we would love to have you subscribe to our channel, so that way when we're coming out with tutorials, you know, you're able to learn these new skills and realize this is totally achievable. Okay, once you have this, now you're going to, of course, sew your rows together. So I'll just flip that over so you can see what we've done. So you can see that technique is we love to have our interlocking seams, right? We love that once we're sewing that, whenever you're sewing a row together like this, there's no pressure out here. When I sew this together, I'm naturally going to want to put those seams out there because I've already got a lot of seams going on right here. And similarly here. So the top row will be pressed to the outside, the middle will be toward the inside, and the bottom will be toward the outside again. And then when you sew those blocks together, that's a lot of sometimes your discretion. Some people like to press seams away, toward the middle, or open. That's your discretion, but that's how those will be assembled. And then as we move on to the other block, we can take a quick look at that. Really kind of the same thing. Lay all of your shapes out. We've done our flying geese on that, and we know we did our half square triangles, so we get 2 techniques on this block. Again, laying everything out. Hey, we already made our fast flying geese. Same technique, right? That 7¼ inches for the main fabric, and then the 4 pieces, those will make our 4 flying geese blocks using that really cool technique. And then again, you're going to lay everything out as pictured in your pattern. Now I need to keep up here, don't I? Turn the page. And just make sure that you lay everything out because it's so easy. You'd think there's no way you could possibly sew this together in the wrong orientation. I've sewed borders on upside down that were directional. I've done all the things, as they say, gotten all the t-shirts. So I've learned now, just lay it out and confirm. So again, sew those rows together, and I can show you how we press the seams. This one would definitely want to be pressing toward this way, and that's why the top row is pressing out, right? Because this one has no pressure. There's no seams here. So since we were pressing that toward the middle, the top and the bottom rows are both pressed to the outside. And again, when you sew all those together, you can choose to press them up, down, or open as you prefer. Once you've done that and you've made the required number of blocks, now we're in our final assembly where you're just laying everything out again and just confirming everything's where you want it to be. Follow the instructions to assemble all of the blocks together. So your inner borders and outer borders, and you're off to getting your quilt quilted and bound. So hey, if you maybe you're an experienced quilter, but you know there's someone that's like really maybe intimidated by quilting, please share our channel with them. Our hope and desire is to encourage people, show them that quilting is absolutely something that is so achievable and fun. So thank you for giving me part of your day today. I look forward to seeing you on a future video.